Started with the work session this afternoon. Councilman Ertel is joining us remotely. He's online. And I will start with Director Steve Lafferty, Department of Planning, Resolution 623, page 38.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the County Council. The administration is requesting approval of Resolution 6-23 in order to prioritize three of our FY24 Rural Legacy Area applications that we will be submitting to the Maryland Rural Legacy Program. All three of these Rural Legacy Area initiatives have been very successful in working with landowners and acquiring easements, and then to monitor the easements to ensure that the restrictions and obligations are being met. The department, in making the review of these applications, considered several factors, including the completion of the projects, the environmental protection, the public benefits, the threat, and sponsor input for this ranking as well. Of the 5 state-approved rural legacy areas in Baltimore County, 3 submitted applications for funding this year. These sponsors are the Gunpowder Valley Conservancy for the Gunpowder Rural Legacy Area, Land Preservation Trust for the Piney Run Watershed Rural Legacy, and Manor Conservancy for the Manor Rural Legacy Area. The department recommends approval of all 3 applications, with the priority being Piney Run Watershed Legacy is the first, Manor Rural Legacy second, and Gunpowder Valley Rural Legacy the third. We are required, when we have more than one rural legacy area, to rank them and submit that ranking to the state. The other 2 participating sponsors did not apply this year for funds, as they have adequate funds to move forward. And with that, Mr. Chairman, request your approval of the resolution.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Director Lafferty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Next, we'll move on to the appointment of Police Chief, Mr. Robert McCullough. Mr. McCullough, how are you doing today?
Mr. Chairman, County Council.
Full disclosure, I've certainly known you for quite a number of years, and your reputation has always been very stellar amongst the men and women of the police department and everyone I come in contact with. So I'm happy to see you here today, and I think the county executive and his staff made a tremendous selection in choosing you. So we look forward to hearing from you today. And if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself for those that may not know you.
If you don't mind, I've prepared a statement, if it's okay to read that, and you can ask
Sure.
any questions. Good afternoon. First, I'm grateful and humbled by this opportunity to once again serve the people of Baltimore County as their police chief. I'd like to thank County Executive Johnny Olszewski and the council for your consideration to lead one of the finest law enforcement agencies in the United States. Becoming a police officer was a childhood dream. I was fortunate to begin my service to Baltimore County at the age of 18 in 1985. During my 35-year career, I rose through the ranks from cadet to colonel, working in a multitude of assignments and key roles. Baltimore County has been my home for more than 3 decades. I have raised my children here, worked, participated in faith-based activities, volunteered, and served our youth and senior citizens in this community. I have grown to understand community concerns as well as issues that affect quality of life in Baltimore County. This is a critical time for law enforcement nationwide. Here in Baltimore County, we face many of the same challenges. I know and understand the issues our officers are facing with changing laws, evolving threats, and perceptions of what policing is and what it should be. As Chief of Police, I will be committed to keeping our department focused on our core mission of enforcing the laws and ordinances of Baltimore County and the state of Maryland, protecting lives, property, and the rights of all citizens, preventing and detecting crime, and preserving the peace. My vision for our police department is to be a proactive, community-oriented agency that is focused on preventing and combating crime and its effects. We will utilize all available resources, data, technology, and partnerships to prevent crime and apprehend criminals no matter where they may go. I believe that every person in Baltimore County deserves to feel safe and know that they are safe in the places where they live, work, and raise their families. Some of my priorities are community policing and crime prevention, to continue building trust and legitimacy, and that includes transparency and accountability as we continue to implement our reforms throughout the police department. Recruitment, hiring, and retention of our employees, training, education, health, and wellness of our officers, school and faith-based institution safety, advancing technology, and reduction in liability for the county. As a department, we will restore the collective sense of safety through proactive public safety strategies, meaningful community engagement, and holistic, unyielding support for our officers and our community. We will be a balanced organization that will treat everyone that we encounter with dignity and respect. I would like to thank each of you for your consideration, and I look forward to working closely with you to make Baltimore County a safer place to live, work, play, and to do business in the future. As Chief of Police, I will be honored to lead and serve alongside the dedicated members of the Baltimore County Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCullough. Are any questions or comments from the member? Yes. Councilman.
Thank you very much, Colonel McCullough. You bring a sterling record to this position. Everyone I've talked to speaks very highly of you, and I fully expect I'll be supporting your nomination. And I look forward to working with you. I have two questions, but they are related to the statement I'm going to make. There is a saying, perception is reality. And we can talk about statistics and facts all we want, but when a shooting occurs in a community, perception is that that neighborhood is in trouble. And just last night, we had a shooting right out near White Marsh Mall, probably a half mile from a police precinct, and it's jarring. So I have two questions. First, can you more specifically describe how you will replenish the ranks of our police department? Put more police officers on the street. And secondly, transparency, which you mentioned. Making sure that everyone has more access to the police department, making sure we have a collegial attitude with the Fraternal Order of Police, which I think we do, and also with the council. Sometimes we find out about things from the social media, and that's fine. The police captain's role is not to go to us, it's to work with the officers to solve crime. But how can we better communicate to the public about the status of ongoing criminal investigation? So it's two things. It's replenishment of the police force, and it's transparency and how we deal with the community.
Okay. I'll deal with the replenishment of the police department first. First of all, I spent quite a bit of time as the commander of the employment section. And while there, we were very successful in terms of hiring. So there was a lot of lessons and things that I learned while I was there that I plan to implement in terms of, as soon as I get to the department, in terms of meeting with the employment section, the entire section, including the background investigators also, and having some candid discussions about what's currently being done and what should be done. Part of being able to recruit in the police department has to do with morale in the organization. My intent is, day one, is to do everything that we can do to increase the morale in the organization, because believe it or not, the people who recruit the most for the organization are the people that work there. And when your people that work in your organization stop recruiting in your organization, you stop recruiting the lifeblood of that organization. So once you increase the morale and create better working conditions and a better work environment for the people that actually work there, then it's easier to encourage other people to come in and to bring in. It's not simply just bringing in people. We want to bring in the best people that we can bring in. We want and keep them. You know, we want to have talented people. I always believe in, you know, our organization is a toolbox, and I want to have as many tools as I can in that toolbox. I don't need everybody to look the same. I don't need everybody to believe the same thing or to have the same background, but I want people to bring multiple talents to the organization to make it as flexible as possible. So it's my intent to make the organization as best as I can. Some of the things that I'm personally willing and committed to do, and it was something that I did as the commander in the employment section, is we will have, we already have organized hiring events, but there were things that I did to take it to even a higher level. So I'll be doing those things, and included in that is one of the things is being ever present and visible. So when your chief comes out to the hiring event and you take the time to actually talk to the people that are applying to the department and learning something about them and encouraging them, and when you come across really talented people that they're going through the process that you think could make it through the process, and you know you're competing with other organizations, you know, there's things like the things that we can do is you assign that person a background investigator right there at the time that they're going through that hiring process, so that they have a telephone number, they have a person that they can contact with, and that gives you a competitive edge. And it says to that person that you care enough to directly be in contact with that person, and it creates an attitude and environment where that person thinks twice ago, hey, these people over here weren't this as personable as these people over here. This is an environment. I mean, the reality is the police department's a family. You know, you don't always get to choose your family members, but when people are choosing these days, they get to choose where they want to work. And we want to be the place where people want to work. In terms of in addressing the transparency,
Right.
and
That was a great answer.
I would candidly tell you that throughout my career, I headed up the officer involved shooting team for about 10 years. I was the internal affairs commander. In addition to that, overseeing those investigations, as well as being the chief of detectives. So I clearly, as a citizen of Baltimore County, living on the west side, I understand the impact and the impression that just one incident of violence has on a community. So some of the things is for the police department is that we have to be responsible in every fashion of the police department, every element of the department. That's from everything from media relations to the response of the police, to the response of the commanders, to the response of the detectives. And we have to get out there, investigate it, get all the facts, and get moving on the investigation and do the things that we have to do. And on the back end, you know, we have to make sure that the commanders are communicating with the county council, with the councilman, with the other elected officials, state officials, and everything, and with our citizens that are simply calling the station and that might have questions about what's going on. The other important part is the media relations piece, which I was the director of media relations for a couple of years, and it's important to make sure that we're getting the facts and the information out in a timely fashion. We have social media these days. there's no reason that if the shooting happens right now, and once the Public Information Office is notified of that shooting, at the minimum, we have social media, we can put out a tweet or something on Facebook and say, hey, we have a shooting that's going on in this area right now. I can quite candidly tell you that last night I noticed that. But when I went to look for additional information,
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. And I can tell you right now that there wasn't a post to the website and from officially from the department till about 1:24 this afternoon. So I pay attention to those things, even though I'm retired and I don't have access to everything in the police department. I pay attention to those things, and I've been there, done that. So I know what's required. I know what needs to be done to improve that. And I promise you that I will make changes and I will make improvements so that there's greater transparency and more information. And one of the things, you guys will always have my phone number. You will always have 24-hour access to me and my colonels, you know, and if you need information, you call us. But my goal is for you to not need information, because we're going to provide the information not only to you, but to the citizen to the lowest level.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had terrific captains, Colonel Congers here, and last night, Captain Fruehling in the White Marsh Precinct was very helpful. I will literally say to my captains, what can I put out there? And because you're right, we're competing against social media that often has incorrect information. Thank you. Those were great answers. And I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McCullough, everything you've said makes me even more optimistic about you being our police chief. I think the only thing that concerns me is you have the support of our council chairman. And despite that, I'm still going to support you. But so in all seriousness, many of the things you said are things that I'm very concerned about. The community outreach. I think I know I speak to the officers when I see them in a restaurant or wherever they are, and many of them say to me, I would not recommend to an individual who's in school or in another county to come to Baltimore County because it's a police force doesn't back up its police, et cetera. And so the training, I'm very concerned about that. And, you know, and no disrespect to anyone else in here who's been appointed to a position in this administration, but I think your position is the most important position because public safety is the #1 issue in my mind. And instead of us discussing these issues now, I'd like to meet with you individually or a couple of members, you know, whatever, to have a one-on-one conversation about my just informational questions. And I think it'd be very helpful for me.
Can I interrupt real quick and I'll let you continue? Just to let you know, this morning, I reached out I've made arrangements to schedule meetings with each one of you. I gave them dates. Hopefully your schedules will work. I think it's the 20th and 21st of next week, next Thursday and Friday, or any other time when you're available to meet with me. But I want to meet with you immediately.
For me, it's Wednesday's much better.
Okay.
Thursday morning, but I'm not a real early riser, so.
You tell me what time you wake up and I'll be standing on your doorstep.
Wake up?
Yeah.
Wade, would you just like to compare calendars with the Colonel now, or?
If it's okay with you. Sure. No, we'll contact you because I really look forward to meeting.
What I would say to you is that just give me a couple months and you'll see the improvement in the agency. You'll see the improvement in the morale. People respond to how they're treated.
Yes.
You've been a matter of fact, my cousin, Colonel Johnny Wayhead, told me to tell you hello. He asked about you, so you will remember him.
Oh, yes.
I think you're the only one that's actually here that was around when he was here. So,
That was
but
last century.
but
Yeah.
you know, but give me some time. He is my cousin. He babysat me as a kid.
Oh, really?
So, yes, and he's the reason why I came into law enforcement.
So I will say hi to him
I will. I
from
will.
me. Wish him well. And I just look forward to us getting together. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilman Crandall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colonel McCullough, on the 20th, I have 8 a.m. available, but not 9 a.m.
Well, you know, somebody need to tell him about Councilman. His hours are a little different than most of ours.
Yes. I will block off your afternoon so you may meet with Councilman Catch. Nothing. Colonel, it's great to see you. Our paths have crossed over the years, always in a favorable way. I know that you have a long history with the department, and I too look forward to voting for you on voting for your confirmation on Monday evening, and look forward to working with you. A couple of just quick questions. Is it perception or reality that we're seeing an uptick in juvenile crime, whether it be anything from misdemeanor to felonies? To your knowledge, or
I'll be
does the data
candid with
support that?
me, having not actually been inside the agency, and I've only briefly seen some numbers. I think across the board, I think, you know, we can say perception of reality, but I think empirically in our society, the way we view juveniles and crime, I think that we believe that there's an uptick in crime. There's absolutely an increase in violence, whether it's in our schools, whether it's out in the community, whether it's involving carjackings and things like that. There's definitely an increase in violence. And that's the thing that troubles us the most is the violence. I think there's a lot that we can do to address that, and it starts with accountability in our society.
I can't agree with you more on that one. So whether it's perception, reality, you don't know yet whether the recent data supports the perception or not. But you're certainly aware, and I've talked to various officers of different ranks in the county agency, and it's of concern that recent actions by the General Assembly have placed restrictions on what an officer may do when confronting or dealing with a juvenile. And just, do you perceive that as a challenge moving forward? Have you thought about strategies that our officers could employ, knowing that 13-year-old can't be charged, can't be arrested, can't be put in a squad car, no matter, from what I understand, no matter the offense, unless of course it's as heinous as a gun charge or something like that.
I
But
think,
have you thought about those strategies at all?
Isn't it 12 and under, I believe?
12 and under, I'm sorry.
12
Yes.
and under, okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strategies that we can use involving our SROs and our resources. A lot of it has to do with communication. And one of the things we're going to be doing is working much closer with the schools. We're fortunate enough that the school system hired back Officer Don Bridges. I've met numerous times with him leading up to this process. And we've talked about the issues in the school. I was fortunate enough to be the major and the liaison to the school system when I was the executive officer in the police department. So I have relationships with the people over in Safe Schools. And I plan for us to work very closely with Recs and Parks and other groups across the community. I think One of the things you'll see also is there'll be increased programming inside the police department in terms of our outreach to our youth across our community this summer and throughout the spring.
Okay.
It's something I've always done. I was the community outreach sergeant and a community outreach lieutenant, so I bring that experience to the job. So there's pretty much nothing in the police department I haven't done, so nobody can pull the wool over my eyes when it comes to these things. I know what we can and what we can't do. And we're going to need support from the community and from the county. So with the proper resources, there's nothing that we can't do to assist the youth in our community. And of course, you know, education is key, but opportunity is also a greater key for our young people.
Another really good answer. Thank you. And I know that you are certainly aware of some of the challenges on the east side. You were the major for the east side for a number of years, right? And I think we worked together well in that the time you were in that role. So you do see that you see the agency as maybe being more proactive or enhancing what has been maybe done in the past in terms of youth outreach, and you mentioned an educational aspect, but you also mentioned personal accountability. And along with me, it also means parental responsibility and accountability. So besides locking the bad guys up, you foresee an enhanced role within the community in Baltimore County to reach youth and families that may be at risk of committing some of these?
When I first became a police officer in Dundalk, and just as another fact, I actually lived in Dundalk as a kid, grew up in Turner Station from the 6th grade to the 10th grade. So I have connections to the community there and roots, and I still have family that live there. But there's a lot that we can do. It used to be a time when I first became a police officer, when a kid got in trouble, we took the kid home and had conversations with the parents. And we would get parents together and we would work things out. Of course, society has evolved since then, but nothing prevents our officers from still taking the time and spending some time finding out what's going on in these kids' lives and trying to come up with a plan and working with other resources in the county to kind of help kind of stem the problem, to stop the problem and prevent it from snowballing and for this person ending up being another statistic in our society. There's a lot that we can do and we will do. And what I need to do is to get in there and sit down. I know the county has reached out to, I think it's the ROCA program.
Correct.
So that's been pretty successful. I like the things that they do with that program, especially even we see an increase in female criminality. A lot of the things that they're doing with young mothers and things like that, and working with the female population, also the young female population will benefit our community also, because you know, when you see these videos online of these fights in the schools, quite often there's not boys in those fights, there's girls in those fights. So we need to not only address, you know, the issues with violence, but we need to address the issues with criminality amongst our young female population.
But that's on and that's on the proactive end. That's on the front end, identifying at risk and having either programs or even officers that will sit down with a family. So on the other end, is there a challenge for the agency to actually show a young person, especially 12 and under, that there are consequences to your actions?
Well,
Do you struggle with that at all?
No, I don't struggle with that at all, because when I worked Woodlawn as a community outreach sergeant, we used to bring, we have our joins program. And what we do is that we would schedule actual meetings for the young people to come into the station, and we would meet and talk to them, you know, about, you know, violence and those types of things. And we would actually give them a tour of the precinct and take them into the cell block and talk to them about, you know, the implications, you know, the consequences for their behaviors as they get older. That's something that, that's something low-hanging fruit type of stuff that we can do. I look forward to actually getting with my team, getting with my youth and community resources, personnel, and actually having these conversations and actually coming up with creative solutions and not implementing them just in one precinct, but the things that we come up with, we're going to implement them across the board at every precinct and every area.
Well, thank you. I think you've given me and Councilman Mark so far some very thorough answers, and we'll look forward to Monday evening. And after you're confirmed, and I know we're going to have one-on-ones with you, which is great. I think we all appreciate that. But let us know how we can help.
I appreciate it.
And just from where we sit.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Major. Sorry, Colonel. I demoted you already.
Councilman Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel, good to see you again.
Good to see you, sir.
And thank you for your service to Baltimore County and your service in the United States Army Reserve.
Thank you.
We go a little ways back to my time over at Towson running the Veterans Department. And our conversations, even back then, I feel like we're coming full circle where I'm sitting up here and I get a chance to have a conversation with you about a role that is, I agree with my colleagues, one of the most important, if not the important, appointed position that we have in the county, especially now. And you're coming, as you know, at a tough time for law enforcement and first responders in general. I guess my point asking, you had mentioned morale, and in my former role and even in the role here with talking with administrators and asking what it is that they need or they see that they need, other than asking for proper equipment, mental health resources have been either the first or the second thing that's always been asked for, to make sure that our officers are supported and that when they're executing their job, that they're not only have access, but also there's a culture that promotes accessing or at least seeking out assistance or help when needed. So I guess my question would be, in your experience and also in your new role, which I look forward to supporting you in, what's the state of mental health services for our officers and sworn officers? And do you have any plans or any way that we can help in making sure that those resources are available to our officers?
When it comes to those services, I'm sure there's always improvements that we can make. I found in my career and in my time that even especially recently, it's one thing to talk about health and wellness and add safety into that for our police officers. It's one thing to talk about it. It's one thing to make it reality. And what I mean is that in the workplace and in the environment, we can talk about it and it sounds really good when we put it out there. But the question is on a daily basis, are we fostering an environment that's truly healthy for our police officers, that's truly safe for our officers? Because we say we care about their health and their welfare, but then we don't treat them right. And the most fundamental thing, and one of the first things I'm going to talk to my exec corps about is, and they know who I am about it, but it's going to be in their face all the time, is how are we treating one another? Because if we're not treating each other right in the police department, how am I supposed to expect my officers to go out in the street and treat the public right? So it starts with us as leaders. It starts with how I engage them, how I treat them. It's simple as my commanders being engaged with their people, but speaking to them. You know, when I have young officers tell me that they walk down the hallway of their precinct and they speak to their commander, and their commander consistently doesn't speak back to them, or that I have commanders who lock themselves in their offices and never come out and even speak to the staff that works in the office with them, that's problematic for me. So for me, day one, when I walk in the door, all my doors are going to be open. I'm going to stick, something in the door to leave the doors open so that people that know that we truly have an open door policy and that people can talk and that people can communicate and create an environment. I've always tried to create an environment where the people that work with me felt comfortable enough to come to me and talk to me about their most sensitive things, the things that are troubling them in their personal life, and know that when they talk to me about it, it's not going to be discussed with anybody else. But not only am I going to talk to them about it, I'm going to try to help them and refer them to the resources that they need. But it starts with how we treat our people in the police department, and that carries over to how the police treat people in the community.
Thank you. And I know that we've had conversations in the past, and I also want to give you an opportunity to kind of put that out there to everyone else. Those that live in Baltimore County recognize that we have issues that stem internally from our own county, but also recognize that lines on a map don't dictate crime or bad actors coming into different areas. In your experience and also in your future role, how do you plan on engaging with our partners and your counterparts in jurisdictions that surround Baltimore County?
Day one, myself and key members of my staff will be going around meeting with the various agencies in the area. I've had extensive experience, of course, doing that as the Chief of Criminal Investigations, as the Operations Bureau Commander, and just in all my various roles, including Homeland Security Commander with Baltimore County. So I have those relationships. I could pick phone up right now and call anybody that I need to call for anything that I need. So, but we're going to make ourselves available as a resource so that they'll make themselves available as a resource, and we're going to have good working relationships. And when things happen or when we're investigating something, we're going to be immediately on the phone contacting, our neighboring jurisdictions and working together to eliminate whatever the problem might be.
Appreciate it, Colonel. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And look forward to working with you again in this new role. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Colonel McCullough. Good to see you.
Sir.
You and I had a good conversation a couple of months back at the Randallstown Community Center. So learned, I've known you for years, but had a really good conversation. Over the past week, I've had a number of calls from Second District residents supporting your nomination. I'll just say that. And given your recent experience from reading through your resume and CV, I know that you've got a good understanding of the nuances related to the Second District of Baltimore County. Things have changed. One of the things that I hear at community meetings, and like my colleagues, we attend community meetings almost every night. 5 years ago, I would say that I don't hear what I'm hearing today. Like the most significant thing I hear at community meetings today, I mean, you do hear about the high profile crimes and when there's a uptick in crime, but the most consistent thing I hear at community meetings now is related to traffic and related to speeding and related to road racing. And it's everywhere in every community, whether it's up in the valleys or from Windsor Mill to Ruxton to the Green Spring Valley. And it's different because 5 years ago, that wasn't the number one issue. And my hypothesis is outside of human behavior, of post-pandemic behavior, is that we just don't have enough police officers to enforce what's out there. And it's a matter of recruitment and retention. And so I think Councilman Marks started this conversation off with recruitment of the best that are out there, of young people that are coming in to look for a career in law enforcement. And then once we're able to find those, to recruit those, the talent, the young talent, could be older talent, but new talent in the law enforcement community, that we're able to keep those folks right here in Baltimore County. And so it's a major part of the job in my estimation. I appreciate you responding, and sounds like you're someone who doesn't mind being in the trenches from time to time. And I always thought that the best way to increase morale is
everyone has their own style, but I think you get into the trenches from time to time, and just wonder what you thought about that.
Well, I would tell you that if you spoke to the young officers that work with me, even when I was a colonel, whether it was a CIB or a patrol, they would tell you that. I've always been one to be out there leading the way. I always took pride in catching the bad guy and helping them to catch the bad guy. You have to, in these days, when your strength is as low as our strength is, our leaders, including myself, we have to be out there with them. And I've had conversations with people today, matter of fact, about that, about some of my observations. Some of my observations is that our supervisors need to be more present. They need to be out the street. I see our patrol cars. I don't see the supervisors. I see our officers responding to calls. I don't see the supervisors with them. It used to be a time the supervisors responded to the calls, especially when you have a young agency and you see the things that go on nationally in terms of use of force and things like that. We have to have our supervisors responding to the calls. I understand that they get tied up with, everything's electronic now. When I came along, we had paper reports, so you could just take them out on the road with you. So they spend a lot of their time in the stations approving reports and doing things like that. But once that's done, we have corporals and sergeants. So somebody can stay back and take care of reports and somebody could be out there. And you also have senior patrolmen that know what they're doing. And we have to create that culture again where the senior personnel feel responsible for the younger personnel and that they're going out there, that everybody's watching, everybody's back. It's interesting. And when you look at East Coast and West Coast policing, I have friends on the West Coast. And I've been out there with them, and even a simple thing like going to the gas station off duty, the cops out there, if it's two of them in the car, they do what they call contact and cover. You get out the gas station, one person's pumping the gas, and the other person's out the car still looking around, making sure that the other person pumping the gas is safe. That we have to create that kind of culture here where our people are watching each other's back. Because as we know from experience, it only takes a second for things to go wrong. I will never forget the day Officer Caprio, when she passed, myself and Colonel Conger were probably the third and fourth persons there. And that's a day we'll never forget. And it happened in an instance because an hour before that, I was talking to Officer Caprio. And it happened that fast. So, I mean, we have to make sure that we're creating that environment.
Thank you for sharing that. Do we, or would you implement, do we have benchmarks on recruitment and retention? So if we're short.
We do have numbers. The last thing I checked this week, the sworn vacancies are 212, and we're working on getting those down. But the real key, like I said, is creating an environment where people want to come. The other thing is this younger generation, they're very sensitive more than any other generation before about pay. I talk to them, and some of the things that they say is that they actually believe that us older people, that we work in an environment where we try to exploit people. They actually believe that they're being exploited, and they want the most pay for their services. And they're actually, some are dedicated to giving you more work, where some are looking to do as least as they can for the most pay. That's just reality. So pay, benefits, security, empowerment. One of the things that I believe in is that we have to empower our employees. I'm an Army guy, and Councilman Young will understand this. In terms of leadership, we can't be the Russian Army. We have to, I believe that everyone's a leader, and that we have to push leadership down to the lowest level. And when you push leadership to the lowest level, you also push accountability to the lowest level. And when you do that, you can plug in community policing, because then your officers at the lower level, they buy into the community policing because they're empowered and they're allowed to make decisions. People should not have to ask for permission to do their job. the citizens, the taxpayers of Baltimore County pay us to do our job and expect us to do our job. But we have to create an environment where they're empowered to do their job, and they're taught that they have the proper education, the proper training, and that we're giving them the proper tools to do their job. And all those things, when we do it right, I talked about limiting liability because I know liability has been an issue recently, that we can get back to those days. There was a time in my career where liability really wasn't an issue for this county. And my goal is to get back to that where we reduce the liability because our people are responding properly. They'll know when to slow down and they'll know when to speed up. And they'll know how to protect themselves and protect one another and protect the citizens of the county.
Thank you. I know that in general, the whole economy is suffering from a workforce shortage. And I don't think the police department is immune from that. And so I hope that we do get to a point where people want to work again and people want to work in law enforcement again. And, you know, that our economy is right-sized. Right now, it's a struggle for all of us, but I wish you luck and I thank you for addressing
I
it.
believe that we will. I think if we create the environment where we make policing fun again for our people and we engage the community and get involved with the community more and get everybody on the same, you know, sheet of music and the same playbook, I think we'll be well on our way.
Thank you, Colonel McCullough.
Thank you.
Councilman Ertel?
Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute a second there. Colonel McCullough, it's great to see you here, and I'm sorry I can't be here live. I don't want to make this about my district at all, but one of the issues we've been having recently, you've probably read, is we've had an uptick of crime in the Towson area, and we were finding that the patrols were somewhat lacking in that a lot of the officers were kind of massing in one place, and now we have officers rotating around the core of Towson. Do you have any specifics that you might want to look at as chief for Towson in particular?
I would say you're difficult for me to hear, but I understand the problem that you're talking about. It was unfortunate as to what happened. I will first of all compliment the county council, the county executive, the council, and the community, along with the police department, and their response to that problem. It was I think it's one of those issues, if we could be quite candid, that we should have been able to foresee. We added a lot of housing, a lot more people to the area, and we didn't add the necessary resources on the police side. We should have added more postcards. I understand that we have an entertainment squad, but it's necessary to add actual patrol cars to that area to have the appropriate number of personnel for the number of people that live in that area, and we haven't done that. I had the experience of working the midnight shift in Towson for about 2 years, and one of the things that I learned in that is that one of the things that we did was that West Side Squad, rather than spreading the units out during the hours when the bars and the entertainment was going on and the kids and the college kids were out, we brought all of the units into Central Towson, but we didn't amass in one area. We kind of patrolled throughout all the streets and had, 5 or 6 cars patrolling Central Towson and had that visible presence to try to prevent those types of things from happening. Now we have much more technology. I know there's investment in terms of cameras and all other types of technology. I know that the entertainment squad has been expanded, but we need to sit down strategically as a police department, and I'll need to look at the things that they have done and look at the possibility of things that we can do moving forward. But we need to make sure that we have permanent resources in that area, make sure that we're working with MTA and our other partners to enhance communication in terms about what's going on, working with the management company of the mall and things like that to make sure that we're ahead of the issue. Monitoring social media. There's a lot that we can tell by monitoring social media as to what's going to be going on in the area and who's coming to the area, what kids are doing. And the other thing with the increase in housing and the fact that you have college kids from several colleges living in the area, and with the social attitudes towards especially marijuana and drugs, I'm sure there's an increase in drug dealing and drug activity. So I'm sure there's an opportunity for us to do additional things with our vice narcotics section and our precinct detectives in terms of rooting out any criminal activity that might be going on in Central Towson.
Great. Thank you so much.
Hey, Colonel McCullough, Mr. McCullough, let me show you something that that means a lot to me, and I think it was just a beautiful thing. I'm not sure if you could see it or not, but this happened about 3 years ago.
Some skills, and he's definitely a good sport. Dribbling. Is that what you call that?
Dribbling, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Dodging, dribbling, yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you saw that. That was like 3 years ago, where we had a police officer in Councilman Mark's district pull up, kids playing basketball, gets out of the car, shows his skills, shoots some hoops with them, and somebody took the picture, put it on Twitter, and it was a really good thing for the police department, and it went a long ways. And I guess the thing that made me bring that up is because we have some officers that do a fantastic job in terms of community relations. Community relations officer, they go to every community meeting there is, and you know what? They talk to old people and some young people, but never teenagers, or because those people don't go to the community meetings. But this officer got out of his car, played with the kids, and I think that goes a long way. The point I'm making is I would like to see a day when every one of our officers are a community relations officer. Every one of our officers feel like it's their job to be in contact with the community, not just the ones we assign to go to the community meetings, because they do a great job. No disrespect. They do a great job, but the people in the community, they come in contact with the patrol officers, the ones working the post. They don't necessarily come up in contact with those officers unless they're in fact going to a community meeting. So I think it's important that, and I think you've touched on this, that officers working the patrol, get in contact with the communities that they serve. I think it goes a long way. Part of that means getting out of the car, whether it means getting out of the car playing basketball with the kids, or getting out of the car to walk the shopping center and say hello to the people that they meet. You have any thoughts on that?
First of all, one of the things that I intend to teach our officers, and it's something that's fundamental to being a police officer. Every police officer is only good as their sources of information and their contacts. And you can't develop sources of information and contacts and information from the community if you don't talk to the community. So for those who want to become detectives, who want to move up in their career, want to be good at their career, any good police officer will tell you that they're good because of their sources of information. It starts with that. But the greater thing is that at one time as you know, the history of our department, we were one of the original community policing agencies starting in the late 70s, early 80s. There was a time when I was coming along, every officer was taught community policing. Patrol officers were given what we call problem-solving projects. and we went out and did those things. But that was a part of the culture of the organization. And it kind of evolved to where we became solely focused on crime fighting. And of course, that's the most important thing. And we will never sacrifice crime fighting over anything because that's what we get paid for. But we also get paid for treating our community with respect and dignity also. And one of the things I will be doing is I will be appointing a commander to be permanently in charge of our community and our community policing efforts. And we will be developing an educational program for everyone in the organization concerning community policing. And as I've talked to you in our interviews, I talked about the fact that, you know, community policing is more than just even talking to people. It's, you know, it's a combination. We're familiar with broken windows. We're familiar with problem-oriented policing. I envision community policing as entailing all of those things. You know, everything from stopping to, you know, to take the garbage can that's out of the street. I think I gave you guys an example in my interview how officer drove past a trash can. You know, the trash can's rolling in the street and it's causing a traffic problem. It's more than likely that officer's going to be called back there. So why not just stop and rather than driving around the trash can, stop, pick the trash can up and sit it on the side of the road. That prevents the problem. You know, being engaged with the community, being involved in the community, being a part of the community. And you showed the example of basketball. Nobody loves basketball more than me. Unfortunately, I've gotten old and can't play the way I used to. But I got pictures to prove that I can play. But you know, one of the things that we have to do is we have to educate the entire department in community policing, and get them to understand that that's part of the mission. It's part of what we do. It's what the community expects. And the thing is that we can have balance in the organization. We can fight crime. We can play basketball with the kids. We can do everything that everybody wants us to do, but with balance. We just have, there's a time and place for everything. It just takes the will, you know, of the people to do it. But I think with enhanced morale in the organization, the right leadership, the organization can go the right direction, and we can be well on our way to being what we all want the police department to be. And most of all, make the career fun for our people to the point that we get back to the time when, quite frankly, there was a time that nobody ever left. There was years that we might lose 1 or 2 people or 3 people throughout a year. Nobody ever retired. And my goal is to get back to that time when people love the job enough that it's family and people want to do the job and they want to treat the community with dignity and respect. But understand that, you know, respect it has to be a mutual thing. You have to give respect to get respect.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming in today, and I think you answered the questions to a degree that I think everybody sees the value in your 35 years of service here to the Baltimore County Police Department. I think everybody can see by your extensive testimony why the county executive decided to choose you for this job. And I'm sure you're going to serve us well as you have for the past 35 years. So I thank you very much. Are there any additional comments or questions from my colleagues? Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Moving right along. Colonel Conger. Always a pleasure, sir. Page 1, everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the council.
Good evening. Colonel Conger. Listen, we've given about an hour time to Mr. McCullough. You don't have an hour. I guess I want to let you know before you get started.
It's
Go
a tough
ahead.
act to follow, sir.
We love you, but not an hour. Go ahead.
Chairman, he's the one with the badge. He can take as long as he wants.
Well, that's true.
What are we going to do about it?
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. The department's requesting a supplemental appropriation of private funds from Towson University, totaling $118,000 to the Special Detail Reimbursement Gifts and Grants Fund. That's a program to increase the amount appropriated to the actual amount of the grant award. The department the department uses the funds to provide additional foot patrols in the area known as Towson Row. This is an operation that we have been executing in the fall semester and plan to continue for the spring semester. And these additional funds would cover the overtime costs for the department in that investment.
Okay, any questions, comments from the members?
Just one quick
Councilman
one.
Toe?
These are all operational funds, correct?
Yes,
Just
sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Ertel?
Sorry. Yes, so we've been doing this grant for a while, and this is just a continuation of that. And so hopefully we can have a favorable vote on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we'll move on to Faith Thomas from Real Estate Compliance. Oh. Ms. Thomas, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Good.
And good evening to you, Mr. Chair, and to members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of a contract to acquire land and easement access spanning approximately 0.063 acres for $13,750 for the construction of a sidewalk along Windsor Mill Road. The property owner is Vincent Ani. The property is located at 6739 Windsor Mill Road in Gwynn Oak. The acquired land will be used for highway widening areas and the revertible slope easement, which is necessary to retain and support the highway and the adjacent property. Our staff appraiser completed an appraisal of the property effective December 1st of 2020, recommending the value of $13,750. The county's review appraiser concurred with the appraisal and recommended the respective amount as just compensation for the acquisition. The Office of Law Real Estate Compliance advised that the property owner accepted the county's offer. The price includes $4,625 to compensate for adverse impacts to certain site improvements, such as fencing and sidewalk. The total 0.63 acres includes both the land and the easement access area, and is part of a larger parcel that is residentially improved with a detached two-story dwelling.
Okay, any questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know, this might be a question for you. It might be a question for Ms. Walker. This issue came up last week at a Hilltop community meeting about and thank you, Chairman, for beginning this process many years ago. And now the implementation is starting. And so the community asked or is our strategy, and I believe our strategy, because we have something similar going on in the eastern part of the district, is wherever we can acquire a strip of land, we're going to acquire that so that we can create as much linear feet of sidewalk as we can while there's opportunity to do that. And so, is that a correct assumption? And Ms. Rogers, it looks like you are.
Councilmember, I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. You said wherever there is available land, we're going to acquire it.
Yes, so where there's an opportunity to make the acquisition, that's what we're taking advantage of, because we're not, as I understand it, we're not going to implement eminent domain. So where we don't have someone that's a cooperative seller, then we don't have the opportunity to link up. And so today we might have a cooperative seller, and so we're going to buy that piece of land so we can create a sidewalk and then link it up as the opportunity presents itself. And I just want to
Yeah.
understand that that's the correct
In
assumption.
that context, yes. So about this particular phase, there are, Faith, am I right, 64?
Yes.
There are 64 parcels that we have engaged the homeowners over the last, well, it'll be a year in October, and done all of the appraisals and easement assessments, and we're engaged with all of those property owners. And I'm pleased to say, which is often not the case, that the vast majority of these individuals are on point with this and are operating and negotiating in good faith. Because when this project started, which was well over 10 years ago, there was an actual petition with the names of persons, and this was initiated by former Reverend Emmett Burns, who was
Yes.
then Delegate Burns. So these property owners have been waiting a long time to do this. Now, we're just in phase one, which goes from Woodlawn Drive up Windsor Mill to Featherbed. And that was a good stopping point, if you will, because Featherbed, of course, if you turn left onto Featherbed Lane and then a block or so down and make a left, then you'll hit Featherbed Elementary.
Right.
So that's why this is phase one. Phase two and phase three, which will be further in the out years, because it's going to take about 10 years to complete the entire project, the 3 phases. So we're in a good place with phase one. We don't really have anyone who is objecting. We do have a homeowner that we're negotiating with. Councilmember Jones, and we're negotiating in good faith because property owners care about their property, whether it's a tree, whether it's hedges or whatever. But I want to give Faith and her team, and also DPWT, because they had to do the initial plat work and assessments in conjunction with the Real Estate Compliance Unit, which of course is in the Office of Law. They've done a yeoman's job in talking with residents to go forward. I don't anticipate that this project will ever get to the point in this phase one based on our engagement with the community that eminent domain would ever be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, I don't expect it would either. What I have shared with communities is that whenever we're dealing with sidewalks, let your watchword be patience, because it requires patience. And, you know, we can put the funding out there, but the actual expenditure could occur years later. So.
But I'd also say, I want to remind that this is not just sidewalks. This is road widening and sewer, because that's an older community below the Beltway that has, you know, very old sewer and drainage system. So this is a comprehensive project.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Councilman Katz?
You ready?
Yep.
Okay. I understand that you said that the council chair is giving you problems because is it his home with the sidewalk in front of it? Because you did say that he was causing you problems.
No, he is aware of, and I won't even call it a problem. I'll call it a negotiation that I empathize with the homeowner, which is not Chairman Jones.
Right.
But I empathize with her because when you've been a homeowner 30+ years in your home, everything to you is valuable and of value. So whether it be a tree, a rose bed, whatever. So the county, we're working diligently.
I was questioned by one of the homeowners during the town hall meeting very aggressively.
Is it rose bushes or what?
Hedges and some other things. And I quickly pointed her in the direction of Madam Ale.
Okay.
The interesting assignments I get. But I think I'm cautiously optimistic we'll be able to resolve it. But this is wonderful. 64 homeowners have, indicated they do want this in their community.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Thomas. We'll move on to page 8, Mr. Terry Hickey. I think he has it.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the council. Director Hickey sends his regrets. He does love presenting before you, but he had a conflict. So I will be presenting today. The administration is requesting approval of a contract for Institute for Community Alliances. ICA is a leading homeless management information system service provider. Maintaining an HMIS system is a HUD requirement, and HMIS management is a specialized skill set that no other staff in DHCD currently has the training or expertise to assume. We need a vendor to keep our HMIS system running so we can remain compliant with our federal grants from HUD to respond to federal requirements. HMIS is also a requirement for states pass-through funding. ICA provides the same service support to 35 other continuums of care nationwide, such as the city of Boston, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Idaho, and we benefit from their expertise and best practice sharing. This contract would be for 24 months and have a total not to exceed amount of $283,200.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the members?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Councilman
Can you
Katz?
tell me how many, forgetting our shelters, because I know many homeless people utilize our shelters, but do you have any count regarding the number of homeless in Baltimore County who have no shelter to go to?
The number fluctuates, to be honest.
What, do you know? Give us an idea.
I can get back to you with some
Good.
more, even historical data if you prefer, through our homelessness services chief, Heather Sheridan.
I'd appreciate that.
Yep.
I just so happened to have a meeting with Ms. Sheridan yesterday. I want to say it was yesterday. And she shared with me that we have 6,000 beds in the county. And very rarely are they at full capacity for a number of reasons. One of which I explained to her, on the west side, we have Hannah Moore. And we have this wonderful family shelter on the east side at Franklin. But on the west side, when the mother and children go into Hannah Moore, the men's shelter is in Catonsville. So even though we may have an officer that may be willing to give them a ride to Catonsville, they don't take the ride because they want to be there when the family comes out of the shelter in the morning. So one of the things we talked about was shuttles, like being able to give for a family on the west side, you know, a ride to the shuttle and ride back, giving the men a ride to the men's shelter and a ride back. That would help utilize some of these beds that's not being used because of transportation issues. So anyway, that was what she told me yesterday. Hmm? Yes. it's a men's shelter. Okay.
Mr. Chair, quick question while we're on this issue. Are you aware of, how do I phrase this? So let's say there's a homeless encampment on Dundalk Avenue that you may be aware of, but it's in the city's jurisdiction. Would we offer a bed to a homeless person or persons that are camping out in Baltimore City? I'm just curious.
I think that is a matter of a variety of circumstances, and also whether or not the people themselves wish to be provided shelter.
Sure.
So,
And that's the shame of it all, is the county has resources and we allocate money for those resources. But if the individual doesn't want the help.
and that's what this type of system helps us to track all the people that are coming through and through our funding sources and through our resources. And so we can, but if you wish, I can have Heather reach out to you to discuss that further.
Okay, sure, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, it just struck me as we were discussing the issue that we have this encampment that started maybe 2-3 months ago on Dundalk Avenue. Administration is certainly aware of it, but it's not in our jurisdiction. So, thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Thank you very much. Now we move on to Mike Freed. I can't remember now, but I spoke with somebody who said they were your neighbor.
My neighbor, sir?
Your neighbor.
Well,
You on good terms with your neighbor?
it's going to very much depend on which side of the house, sir. Was it someone at the state? The Director of General Services is my neighbor.
Absolutely. That's
Hot tip,
exactly
yeah.
who it was.
Our children are very good friends.
Good. He spoke very highly of you. So hopefully we got it right.
Well, that was money well spent on my part then, sir.
Good.
Chairman and members of the council, thank you for letting me present, although it's clear I'm not your favorite department head from the police interaction, but we will work to improve that. OIT is before you with 2 requests. The first is requesting approval for an amendment with a contract with Unicom Government Incorporated. This is similar to the second request, the first one, but both are under to extend the county contract dates to align with the purchasing vehicles with which we're using to purchase our services. So in both cases, these are, large purchase orders that we use to purchase IT commodities. So specifically hardware and software. We pulled the records for these, and it's mostly, or the lion's share of the dollars are consumed by large licensing purchasing. So our Adobe, our Amazon Web Services are generally the things that we purchase through these vehicles. There are competitively bid mechanisms in both cases.
How much are they?
For the Unicom government contract, there's a not to exceed of 5.4 million. So again, for each of these, they're master blankets essentially. So we'll issue task orders to consume what we need. And there's no fiscal impact on that one, sir. The second one is a total not to exceed of $8,886,176 for the amended 7-year and 5-month term.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the members? All right. Well, thank you very much. Make
Thank
sure
you,
you
sir.
say hello to your neighbor for me.
Yes, sir, I will.
Okay, on both sides. Good and the bad. Next, we move on to page 18, Amy Horning. Amy, I'm sorry it's been taking so long.
Good evening, Councilman Chair and members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of a contract for EJ Herring and Son to provide HVAC maintenance and repair services for computer environments at 43 locations throughout the county. This vendor was selected as the best qualified, experienced, and the lowest competitive bid. This is a one-year contract with 4 one-year renewals. In no event shall the total compensation paid to the contractor exceed the sum of $3,024,000 during the entire term of this agreement. And this concludes my testimony. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, comments from the members? None. We'll move on to page 22, on-call plumbing services.
The administration is requesting the approval of an amendment to the contracts for Spears Mechanical, BMC Services, and Denver Elec to provide on-call plumbing services throughout the county. Currently on these contracts, there is $126,188.72 left on our not to exceed. The administration is requesting a combined increase of $1,278,902 to continue to provide plumbing services throughout the county. This contract is currently out to bid, and all other terms, conditions, and provisions of this agreement will remain in full force and effect. And that concludes my testimony.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the members? Councilman Patel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On this plumbing on-call contract, so does this vendor take care of all of the county's assets for plumbing issues? The one that comes to mind that recently has been in the public eye is the detention center's plumbing. And just wonder if this on-call service addresses issues at the detention center.
The detention center is one of the buildings that we service.
And so if an issue were to arise at the detention center where there was faulty plumbing, this vendor would be called and that would be addressed?
Yes, we use the on-call vendors for emergency services.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, well, we have another contract, lighting maintenance.
Yes, sir. The administration is requesting the approval of a contract for Lighting Maintenance Incorporated to provide labor, materials, tools, equipment, and supervision for maintenance and repairs of exterior lighting at various county-owned and operated athletic fields, parking lots, courts, and exterior lighting within the boundaries of the county. The vendor was selected as best qualified, experienced, and the lowest competitive bid. This is a one-year contract with 4 one-year renewals. In no event shall the total compensation paid to the contractor exceed the sum of $1,479,211 during the entire term of this agreement. This agreement has a MBE goal of 30%. And that concludes my testimony.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Council.
what are, with the replacing, what is it, the lights? What are they being replaced with? What kind of lights?
That I do not know, but I can get that answer for you.
Hopefully it's the one that aren't as intrusive as the older ones. So, thank you.
I can get that for you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Horning.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to page 30. It's DeAndrea Walker. Last department head, but certainly not the least. Go right ahead.
Director Walker, do you know the answer to the lighting question?
No, sir.
Do you do lights?
We do lights, but I wasn't, to be honest with you, I was kind of reading my own stuff.
Well, all I asked is that when light bulbs are replaced, are they replaced with the most modern ones that aren't intrusive on neighbors, or do they?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I'm
good.
sorry, yes, sir.
Your answer is yes, they do.
Mhm.
You do.
Yes, sir.
That's good news.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the council.
Good afternoon.
Today, we have a contract. The administration wishes to continue to utilize the Alta Planning and Design services to work on our creation of our bike and ped plan. We had extensive outreach, and during that extensive outreach, the quantity of public and stakeholder comments, we had well over 250 comments that came in as a part of the process and the outreach that we were doing. So the contractor needed some additional funds in order to finalize our project. The scope of the language to be included in our new and revised contract will include everything from making sure that our bike and pedestrian mobility plan is clear and concise work plan for our transportation investments over the next 5 years. It'll also include a summary of our planning methodology, our vision and our goals and our existing conditions, and make recommendations for facility types and concepts designs, as well as recommend policies and programs and implementation strategies. This is an additional $35,000 requesting to have in order to complete our bike and ped 5-year plan. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, how about we move on to the next contract, page 30 as well?
Okay, the administration is requesting approval of 4 contracts to provide Tier 1, Tier 2 on-call civil engineering, transportation, structural design services throughout the county. For reference, our Tier 1 tasks typically cost $50,000 or less, and our Tier 2 tasks typically exceed $25,000. The Tier 1 contractors are Pinonia Associates and Burtis and Associates, and the Tier 2 contractors are JMT and KCI Technologies. Each contract commences upon council approval and continues for 5 years with 2 additional 1-year renewals. The combined compensation for the entire 7+ year renewals may not exceed $10 million. It's important to note that this was a best qualified competitive contract. These were all best qualified competitive contracts. And in addition to those examples that I gave that they'll also be doing surveys and environmental work that we need done and minor utility structural design. We also have an MBE, a 20% MBE on this contract. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Any questions, comments from the members? Hearing none, we'll move on to the very last item, bicycle and pedestrians.
Oh, that's the one I did first.
Oh, you did that first already?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
And
sorry.
then we put all 4 contracts in one, and working with the auditors, we put all 4 in one.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Walker.
Thank you.
Director Walker, thank you for our recent email exchanges, your responses.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Director Walker, thank you for our workout along Smith Avenue and Greenspring where we walked.
I got my steps in that day.
We got more than your steps in that day. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay, Councilman Patoka, zoning regs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill 1523 is a minor modification to the zoning regulations to allow for medical uses. And this is a proactive measure to prevent another vacant, one building going vacant in the Pikesville commercial area. This has been reviewed and approved by and supported by the Pikesville Community Corporation, which is an umbrella group of leaders of many Pikesville community organizations. So what we're trying to do jointly as a community is prevent another vacant building like the one that is like the 14 acres of vacant property that Mr. Freed's neighbor is the steward of right now. So we just want to prevent that from occurring and preventing and trying to change the direction of the Pikesville commercial area into a strength rather than a liability.
Okay, any questions, comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Thank you. So Councilman Patoka, if we look at the fiscal note on 1523, second to last paragraph, the second sentence in the fiscal note is that a medical clinic is not generally defined. Do we want to take a look at that?
There's two definitions of medical clinic. One is defined by state law, and then there's another that is used in the Baltimore County zoning code.
Okay. Well, we can clear this up offline, but I just have, so there are differences in Baltimore County due to state regulations and certifications and such of state licensed medical facility, right?
Yes, this is not that.
Right, and we spoke on that
Yes.
last week or previous week. But then medical office is defined in the code, but it appears that maybe medical clinic, according to the fiscal note, and we need to dig in a little bit further, medical clinic is not necessarily defined.
Defer.
This doesn't really pertain to your bill as much as it is maybe cleaning up.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Boswick on that.
You are essentially correct, Mr. Crandall. The zoning code defines a medical clinic only as something that includes kidney dialysis facilities. It doesn't really define it on its own, as opposed to a state licensed medical clinic, which, as we know, in Article 4C of the zoning regulations is defined, and I think we have that in the fiscal note as well, including detoxification facilities, alcohol abuse and drug abuse treatment programs, and freestanding ambulatory care facilities that are certified by the Health General, that are certified as such in the Health General article of the Annotated Code of Maryland. Our general definition of medical clinic in Section 101 of the zoning regulations is not very specific, and I think that's something that Mr. Patoka is looking at.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Any additional questions or comments? Anything for the good of the order? All right, I guess we're adjourned. Thank you very much.